Welcome back to Amherst. I'm Catherine Epstein. I'm Dean of the Faculty and a Professor of History. I've been Dean of the Faculty now for 2 years, and it's an extraordinary opportunity to help shape an institution of this caliber. Unfortunately, I didn't go to Amherst as an undergrad. I really wish I had. But the education that we give our students is really just extraordinary. What I'm going to do now is give a few sort of prepared remarks, and then after that we'll launch into a conversation. I'm very much looking forward to hearing about what you're thinking about, your concerns, so give me a chance to speak first, and then I'll give all of you a chance. So I realize that you are now on campus at a time when few students are here. I wish that you had the opportunity to interact with our students. Although the student body looks very different today, you will find the same intellectual spark and brilliance that has long characterized Amherst students. If and when you have the opportunity to interact with our students, I think that you will find yourselves bright, passionate, inquisitive students who are a pleasure to teach. Now, besides all the academic departments, the library, athletics, the Center for Community Engagement, the New Teaching and Learning Collaborative, the Mead Art Museum, the Benesky Museum, and the Emily Dickinson Museum all report to me. So I'm happy to answer questions about any of those campus units, in addition to broader questions about the Amherst curriculum and what's going on here. Okay, as Dean of the Faculty, I am technically the Chief Academic Officer. We have a faculty of 183 tenure-line faculty, and we have another 40 to 50 additional lecturers and visitors who are with us each year. So we're talking about a teaching faculty of roughly 230 to 240. What are the main things that I'm thinking about these days? So the main thing, in many ways the most important thing that I do and that my office does, is to recruit the best faculty possible. And I should add, also retain the best faculty possible. We have a terrific faculty, and it's only getting stronger. This year, some of our faculty have had amazing successes. We have 2 Carnegie Fellows among our faculty members, and there were only 33 Carnegie Fellows named nationwide. We also have one of 8 Whiting Public Engagement Fellows among our midst. Our faculty continue to publish wonderful award-winning books, and our scientists continue to perform world-class science. Recently, one of our alums and a faculty member, David Hall, was featured on the cover of Nature Physics. One of our aims in recruiting the best faculty possible is also to diversify the faculty. Excellence and talent is found everywhere, and we owe it to ourselves to run the broadest searches with the deepest pools possible. We will never hire a faculty member if we do not have the confidence that that individual is absolutely top-notch. This past year, we ran 9 searches, but we only filled 6 positions. We simply weren't satisfied with the candidates in the other 3 searches. Next year, we are running 15 searches, which is really high for Amherst. If you look at the numbers, 183, that's a lot of new faculty members coming on the next year, and I expect that it will be quite a year. So that's one thing I'm thinking about, recruiting the best faculty possible. I'm also thinking a lot about our newly launched Teaching and Learning Collaborative. You can turn over a student body very quickly, and so we've been able to recruit a very diverse student body. However, you can only turn over the faculty over the course of a generation. Our faculty were not particularly trained to teach all of our students today. We have students from a range of backgrounds and students who have a range of preferred learning styles. We're doing everything we can to have our current faculty create learning environments in which all of our students can thrive. We are thus actively engaged in providing support for faculty members eager to adopt new pedagogical methods to reach all of our students. The devotion of our faculty is amazing. Last week, 125 faculty members and instructional staff, 68 tenure-line faculty, or a third of the faculty, with representatives from every department, came together for the inaugural Dean's Retreat. We spent the day talking about inclusive pedagogies, ways to get all students to engage in our classes. Well, research has shown that these pedagogies help less well-prepared students excel. They actually benefit all students. It was exhilarating to be among a faculty so dedicated to teaching that they were willing to give up a day at a busy time of the year. Grades were actually due that day to attend this event. We recently received a $1.5 million grant from the Mellon Foundation to incentivize faculty to adopt new curricular models, especially for gateway courses, courses that stand at the beginning of the majors that are often make-or-break courses for students. We have students who struggle in beginning science courses because they have not had the high school preparation that students from the best private high schools have had when they arrive at Amherst. We are encouraging academic departments to draw on new research on the teaching and learning of science and mathematics so that they can enhance the learning of all of our students. 2 years ago, we hired our first instructional designer, Hari Stephen Kumar. Hari is terrific in connecting with our faculty to support them in innovative teaching techniques. Some of this is technology-based, but most is not. We are now hiring a second instructional designer, and Hari will be heading up our new Office of Curricular and Instructional Services. In addition, over the past year, we have had a working group focus on the Center for Teaching and Learning. Such centers are quite common at liberal arts colleges, but none of the existent models quite fit our needs. Next year, we will run a pilot teaching and learning collaborative that will be chaired by Professor Jill Gensler. Jill is a professor of philosophy and the faculty director of the Writing Center. She will coordinate several other units, including curricular and instructional services, the research and instruction librarians, the quantitative skills center, academic technology services, and the Center for Community Engagement, in order to provide faculty with the best support possible. We have wonderful instructional staff on campus, and they make a difference every day with our students. We are also beefing up our quantitative skills center. Later this summer, I will appoint a faculty director of the Q Center. Another thing I'm thinking about is the curriculum committee. I'm actually co-chairing this committee. There are 7 other faculty members on it, several staff members, and several students on it. And we are currently engaged in a very broad examination of our curriculum. At Amherst, ever since the presidency of Alexander Meiklejohn, which was from 1912 to 1923, we have seen some fascinating curricular experiments. Meiklejohn believed that liberal arts education was about making minds and preparing students for lives as active, engaged citizens in a robust democracy. He made sure that academic excellence and rigor were at the heart of the Amherst curriculum, and this has now remained true for a century. Some of you attended Amherst between 1947 and 1966 when the so-called new curriculum was in place. It involved many core classes taken in the freshman and sophomore years, but since 1971 we have actually had an open curriculum. In many ways, that open curriculum has served us well for over 40 years. The only requirements that we have for graduation are 31 classes, a first-year seminar, and the requirements imposed by a student's major. Many students love the open curriculum, although often for not such great reasons. Here's the issue, as far as I'm concerned, and I think the curriculum committee is concerned. We have a very diverse student body, and we feel that the open curriculum is perhaps not serving all of our students well. What are the problems? So students who have attended good schools, whether prep schools or good public schools, are much better able to navigate the open curriculum than students who have not. The open curriculum does not provide sufficient guidance for students who have no idea what they want to get out of a liberal arts education. The open curriculum also does not provide shared or common experiences that will help students transcend their differences. It does not provide sufficient opportunities for students to bond over intellectual questions and interests. The open curriculum also doesn't force students to get out of their comfort zones. It allows students to engage in excessive specialization, and I'm not sure that that's what we want for our students. So where might we go with all of this? The Curriculum Committee is likely to recommend a series of required first-year seminars, perhaps stretching even into the sophomore year. So what we will be doing is hopefully adding a little bit more structure to the open curriculum, which of course will make it no longer quite so open curriculum. My hope is that there will be a small number of first-year seminars co-taught by many faculty members so that a significant number of first-year students will have taken the same class. Faculty members would thus also have a common intellectual experience in terms of shaping those syllabi, talking about how they're going to be teaching the classes, and that would allow them, faculty members also, to build connections across the curriculum. The Curriculum Committee is also interested in ensuring that students develop core skills that we think are essential to liberal arts education, so critical reading skills, writing skills, dialogue argumentation skills, and research skills. Finally, the Curriculum Committee is likely to recommend some sort of incentive to get students to distribute themselves across the curriculum. While 90% of our students take at least one course in science and math sometime during their time at Amherst, and all students take at least one humanities class, about 25% of humanities majors never take a science or a math class. So you laugh. It's not a laughing matter. One solution would be to link Latin honors, that is summa magna cum, to distribution requirements. So again, I want to emphasize that the tough and challenging education that you had at Amherst is what we continue to deliver today. Amherst students are truly distinguished by their education, and that will continue into the future. So I'm going to end here, and I'm hoping very much that you will give me questions that will spark a nice conversation, and we'll move on from there. Yes?
One question regarding, you left out one of the curriculum changes over the years, and that was after the 1946 to,
so when the new...
There was the problems of inquiry program,
right,
which went, I think, from 66 to 72.
At least,
and that
yes.
was, in a sense, that did seem to do some of what you're talking about, because they had a requirement in the humanities, a requirement in the social sciences, and the requirement in the physical sciences and the biological. And those three courses lasted for 6 years. I'm wondering if some of the work that is going down, how much is it informed by the current seminar system the freshman year, and how much is it informed by those courses which were taught collectively during that 6-year period of time, which was the bridge between the new curriculum and then the open curriculum?
Right. So I actually wasn't aware that that there were a 3-course sequence. I thought it was 2 courses, but I think it evolved over time.
It was a requirement. You had a requirement. It was a semester course in social sciences, a semester course in the humanities, and a semester course in the physical science, and all of those were required.
Okay, and then that morphed into sort of problems of inquiry, I believe.
That was the problems of inquiry program.
That was the problems of inquiry program, okay, which is what we see very much as the precursor to our first-year seminar program.
Yes, right.
So I think the difference would be that we would not necessarily have those 3 semesters, those 3 courses, mirror humanities, social sciences, and natural sciences. They're more likely to be skills-based. So in the first semester, it would likely be reading skills, and writing skills would be carried throughout the 3 semesters. The first semester would likely really focus on reading skills, interpretation of text, that kind of thing. The second semester would probably really focus on dialogue and argumentation, sort of staking out positions, how to be really persuasive in the kinds of arguments that you are given. And the third semester would likely focus more on research skills and would very likely have a quantitative component to them. So a little bit different in terms of what you outlined there. But I do think in many ways this is sort of back to the past. I mean, there are only so many curricular models that you can adopt. And I think that this is sort of looking back at that period after the core curriculum, the new curriculum ended, and before we went sort of absolutely open curriculum.
Thank you.
Yes?
I'm wondering how all this looks to the faculty.
Aha, so that of course is a huge problem, right? And that's it's not the students who are the problem, it's the faculty.
We have a couple of sons who are academics in
Yes.
higher education. And you get on the tenure track and then you publish.
Right.
If you don't publish, you're in deep trouble. You perish. And that means that these young assistant professors focus more and more on their very small specialties and get published. Now, that's okay, but what does that do to how the faculty works together? Back in the new curriculum days, every single member of the English department taught the same lessons in English 1. They collaborated and did it together. If they were motivated by publishing, it certainly did affect us as far as we can see. Now, has the motivation changed? Can there still be that cohesiveness in planning and working together among the faculty? Or must each pursue his preferred?
So I think what we want to do is to get more faculty members to buy into this idea that there's certain things that all our students need. And I agree with you that, the fundamental issue is how much the faculty today is specialized in their research specialties. That's important. I think it's absolutely crucial that we have faculty members at the cutting edge of their disciplines. That's what motivates some fantastic teaching. It's what gets students engaged in research. There are all sorts of positive things about having top-notch researchers. We're looking for very particular kinds of faculty members at Amherst. They are ones who are both top-notch in their field of specialization, but who are also extremely eager to participate in the project of liberal arts education. Liberal arts education is by definition broad. We can't have faculty members who teach only seminars on one author in the English department. That's absolutely unacceptable. So it's a conversation I have with all incoming faculty members that while we really want them to be top-notch in their areas of specialization, they have to teach broadly and they have to teach courses that students are interested in taking. They are only really allowed to teach one seminar a year. In many departments we can't even allow that because there are too many staffing shortages. So the reason why I say the faculty is the problem is that faculty right now are very used to, because of the open curriculum, being able to teach whatever they want. And so what we're going to have to ask faculty and persuade faculty to do is to buy into this idea that it would be helpful to have some interdisciplinary first-year seminars that would be valuable for them to teach, that they would enjoy teaching, that would give them contact to more colleagues across the campus, and so on. What's interesting right now is that when you talk to faculty for an extensive period of time, they start to get used to these ideas. So the curriculum committee started out, it's like, no way, there's no way we can change this, whatever. And after we've talked for a year, there's a sense that we might be able to do a little movement on this front, and we may be able to have more structure in the curriculum. So I think this is an evolving process, and I think you're absolutely right that faculty buy-in is going to be absolutely crucial to making this work.
Can I ask you just a follow-up? What's the success rate for an entering teacher moving toward tenure? What's the success rate?
So our tenure rates are 60% of individuals who come to Amherst will eventually get tenure. 80% of those who stand for tenure get tenure. So the difference is that a number of people leave in their first years of the college. It's often for spousal reasons. That's probably the #1 reason why people leave. And in some cases, there are fit issues. People decide they don't want this kind of a teaching career. But so basically, it's 80% of those who stand for tenure, but a number leave beforehand. Yeah?
Just another tricky faculty issue.
Oh no.
I work for a public university system and coordinate community engagement there. And you're head of the Center for Community Engagement, so I've been following a little bit of that, plus Amherst's slightly increased emphasis on internships while students are with us. And I'm wondering the extent to which faculty are embracing community engagement as something they care about versus a staff responsibility, and how you're motivating that, and to what extent faculty are engaged in internships.
Okay, so we are altering the focus of our Center for Community Engagement to make it much more about the staff there supporting faculty in bringing in community engagement and problem solving and more real world sort of activities into their courses. So that's sort of more of a new focus. You find certain departments are particularly interested in this. The American Studies department is the one that's perhaps most embraced Center for Community Engagement. But there are many other departments, and it's sprinkled all across the curriculum. We have someone in the music department who does all sorts of projects around sounds in the Pioneer Valley. so he's been very involved. We have other people in the music department involved. So it's spread across the curriculum. We're hoping to get that more and more, a part of what faculty members do. We think students enjoy this, and we think it's important. The internships piece is less faculty driven, so at this point it has been largely a staff project, and we are not looking towards giving credit for internships. We have not moved that way at all. I think that we are looking to sort of beef up our internship program so that they have more links with our academic programs, and I think that's all still a work in progress. Yeah?
I was reading the strategic plan for the college, and it seemed to me that there's going to be an emphasis on students working with faculty on real research projects. So I was wondering if you could comment on that a little bit. And my hypothesis is that the students coming in are a little more prepared these days. At least my kids are way ahead of where I was. And that's kind of facilitating the ability for them to actually get involved in real academic research.
So I don't know how much the changes have taken place. I would know that better if I were in the sciences. So that's traditionally where a lot of student-faculty research has taken place. Right now, roughly a quarter of the student body takes place in research opportunities, working with faculty members, either during the year or over breaks, and working with faculty, either as sort of research assistants or collaborating more with them. We have a variety of programs around student-faculty research, and we spend about $800,000 a year on student-faculty research. I'm not sure whether they're better prepared. I think one of the things we're trying to do is to make sure that all of our students can have, research opportunities. So if students are coming in very well prepared, it's true they are likely to approach a professor earlier on and sort of get involved in the student-faculty research, but we would like to see that more broadly. So, and make sure that faculty research is something that's open to all students. Yeah?
Regarding internships, this is really touching. How with the social sciences, research, descriptive statistics, so on and so forth? I know that can be explosive if it's presented. Any thoughts about is anything being done along those lines?
So I'm not sure I understand your question. It sounds like you're asking a very provocative question, but I'm not sure what's provocative about it. Yeah, okay.
Maybe it's not that one.
Okay.
Maybe it's not. We talked about using a quantitative element, for example. You talk about internships, but there's no credit for internships because they're not related enough to what is going on into a curriculum perhaps. So maybe I'm wondering, because something being done, investigated as a way to make these internships more relevant, to combine it with kind of social studies research, which in turn might lead to some publishing together with a faculty member, where there might be statistics involved.
Okay, so I think we would look at that as more faculty-student research and not necessarily internship. So when students do research for faculty members over the summer, say, they are paid a stipend to be on campus. So you could call that, I suppose, a research internship, but we don't call that internships. What we call internships are when students, leave campus, or they may be living on campus, but they're out in the community doing work. For that student-faculty research, students would not get credit for that either. But again, we're trying to, integrate these better together, even if students will not necessarily get academic credit for it. They're certainly getting lots of life skills, employer, skills that are attractive to employers. They can certainly put it on their resume. So there are all sorts of benefits beyond, to an internship, obviously beyond actually getting credit in the classroom. Yeah?
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier that you wanted to provide some courses that would, diffuse commonly throughout the student body and that would have a commonality experience. What sort of subjects are being looked into to serve that function? So
I think the important thing here is that the content would not necessarily be set. It's really more around skills. So I imagine that a number of faculty, there'd be a range of these courses and they may well change over time. At this point, it would be extremely difficult to get the faculty to decide on this is the canon that all Amherst College students should know. So I think that what we're talking about is having some set of first-year seminars, so at least not just 15 kids have the same common experience, but 45 or 60 or 75 or 100, whatever the number is, however many faculty members get together to mount that first-year seminar. So it's not about content, it's really about skills, and it's also about creating common intellectual experiences, at least across some portion of the first-year class.
And then is there any way to incentivize, other than maybe tweaking the Latin honor system, to get people to avoid just pigeonholing themselves into their comfort zone? Because
well, you could require them, right? I'm not sure we're going to go that way. I mean, you could actually require like distribution or something like that. Distribution requirements. I think it's more likely that we would start at least with incentivizing. And again, it's not such a great problem except for a subset of students, those humanities students that just refuse to budge. One thing we've noticed is that the very strongest students, so for example, the student who got the highest academic distinction this year, that individual had 14 A pluses on his transcript, which is fascinating. And he'd only taken courses in, I think, 4 or 5 departments. So an incredibly strong student, really impressive. And this person was across, he would double majored both in a science and in a humanities. So in a sense, he was covering, the division certainly at the college, but not sort of going all, trying out music or art or this or that. So we're concerned about that degree of specialization. One thing we're interested in doing, not so many students do this, but a few students triple major, and we don't care for that. That just strikes us as excessive credentialing. So one thing the curriculum committee has talked about is you can have one major, you can double major, or you could have one major and potentially a minor if we start introducing a minor system. But that's it. Even if you were to fulfill the requirements for a third major, we would not let you say on your transcript that you had a third major. So there's some things like that we can do also to try and get students to sort of broaden out across the curriculum. Yeah?
Did I hear you say earlier that one of the things that's no longer acceptable is single author courses?
Single author? No.
Okay.
No, I mean, it would be fantastic if someone taught a course just on one author. But if someone was teaching 4 courses on one author, that would be problematic.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so one course, fantastic. That's a really deep study of a particular author. I don't want a professor teaching 4 courses on that author, on any author. Yes?
Shakespeare?
Shakespeare, we can negotiate on that one, yes.
You mentioned the new curriculum challenge. One of the things we experienced was that some of the more memorable faculty members challenged us not so much to learn their subject matter as to learn. Is that something that's going to be continued?
Yes, absolutely. Learning to learn is, I mean, we talk about that a lot. That is the real aim of a liberal arts education. It's not about content, it's really about learning, just exactly how you phrased it. It's learning to learn, and it's learning the skills that you'll need over a lifetime rather than the skills for your first job. So, well said. Yeah?
I'd like to make a pitch for English 1-2 under the new curriculum. That was class of 61. That was 2 to 3 papers a week. They were short. They were looking for tight, clear, concise writing. I believe that I'm a lawyer now. I believe that's the best thing I got out of Amherst, because the first thing you need to do in whatever field you're in is write and write well.
Right.
So it seems to me I would urge that be given strong.
Yes, I mean, the emphasis on writing is something we really want to beef up more and more. We have evidence that some portion of the student body tries to take large classes where there are many students, so they won't have to do a lot of writing, and we think that's problematic. So in first-year seminars right now, there is an emphasis on writing, but right now it's only 1 semester long. That's been part of the first-year seminar for a while. I think that we don't necessarily want to force the English department to be teaching all that writing. We believe that across the curriculum, write. I mean, a historian, in my view, can teach writing just as well as an English department member. So I think it's okay if it's not just English 1-2. I agree with you that there should be a real emphasis on writing a lot, writing lots of short papers, and we'd like to emphasize that even more than we do now.
And just to comment, my daughter was class of '96 at Columbia. They had a curriculum that was somewhat close to the Amherst new curriculum. They did not provide a curriculum.
It's Columbia and Chicago and St. John's. Those are the big ones.
So,
Yep.
Okay, so you already know.
Oh, yeah. No. And there are graduates of the Columbia program on the curriculum committee, and you can imagine what these individuals are advocating for.
You mentioned briefly technology. When I think of new technology in education, it's kind of primarily to overcome big groups and trying to make online learning more intimate. At Amherst, you have the luxury of small classes. So, and you mentioned you're not technology driven, but I'd be curious to hear how you envision technology incorporating, and maybe a couple of examples of things which you think are relevant to Amherst.
Okay, so some technology is very basic. So for example, clickers. In some classes, faculty members are using clickers just to see where students are, in the course of the lecture, where they'll throw out a problem, for example, and then students can solve the problem quickly or see if they're going to get the answer right, or the professor can see, are students getting what he or she is trying to convey. Very simple use of technology. More deeper uses of technology involve, for example, faculty members being able to use technology to annotate readings for students, or students as they're reading along being able to comment on the reading and to think about where that reading might play a role in a class discussion. So again, this is very particular to a particular professor, for example, who wants to really emphasize that close reading and thinks that this is a useful way to do so. Faculty members are using technology in, some flipped classrooms are happening here. That is, faculty members are taping their lectures, so to speak, and then using class time to do problem-solving exercises. So it's another way that technology is being used. It's interesting that we have an instructional designer who was actually originally hired probably for his technical skills, and who quickly made it clear he wasn't really that interested in technology. He's much more interested in figuring out what is it that faculty members want to do with their students, what is it that they want their students to accomplish, and then figure out how to get to that, whether it uses technology or not. So that's really our emphasis. If technology is useful, it's useful, but we're not trying to, soup everything up and make everything technology-based. Many of us actually ban laptops in class because we know that their students are often doing something else if they have their laptops on than listening to us, so it is not at all uncommon. Certainly in my classes, when I'm not doing very much teaching right now, but when I do, I don't allow laptops in the larger classes. I do still allow them in seminars because it's actually useful if you're having a conversation and something comes up and someone looks it up quickly on their computer, whatever. That's actually useful and adds to the conversation. And the class is small enough that I know what everyone's doing. But for larger classes, that's typical. Yes?
Can I follow up my lawyer friend's question about writing? Is there a consensus among the faculty, if they get a paper in history or whatever, and the writing is bad, is there a consensus about doing something about it?
Yes. So what we do, and we will probably beef up this mechanism, so to speak. What happens now is students are in first-year seminars, and part of the task of the first-year instructor first-year seminar instructor is to gauge students' writing. And if the writing is really poor, then that student gets referred to a dean, and that student will be encouraged, strongly encouraged to take a writing intensive class in the spring of his or her sophomore year. So we do have mechanisms, so we will catch the students who are really having problems with writing. In many ways, I'm more concerned about the students who get by. They're good enough, so no reason to really freak out about the writing, but this certainly isn't good writing. So I think it would be helpful to have mechanisms in place to kind of reach those students as well.
And what mechanisms do you have in mind?
Well, it would be more referrals. As you have students in your class, really encouraging faculty members to refer this to an individual so we can get a sense of what those numbers look like, and then mounting classes to address it.
Can you talk a little bit about the Writing Center, too?
The Writing Center, so the Writing Center Center has been a terrific success at Amherst College. About 8 or 9 years ago, we had a writing center with a non-faculty director who basically used students to help other students. At that point, 8 years ago, we decided we really needed to do something excuse me, about writing on campus. And so we put 2 faculty directors in charge of the Writing Center and professionalized the staff of the Writing Center. So we now have, I believe, 4 full-time writing associates, senior writing associates, who are meeting all day, every day with students about their writing. And they also go into classrooms and run workshops. And they also have workshops during non-class time hours to help students. So for example, thesis students. We think the success of the Writing Center now is why we're actually changing the model of the Quantitative Skills Center to put a faculty director in charge of that center and ultimately to professionalize the staff there too. So we're really focusing a lot more on these kinds of skills and making sure that faculty have support when they're teaching these kinds of subjects, making sure they're getting staff support to help them with working with students. Yes?
Do you have any ideas about incentives for faculty to get them to participate in these new semi-required skills-based courses that you're talking about?
Doesn't this sound fantastic? Wouldn't you, as a professor at Amherst College, want to teach these kinds of classes? I think that we can do quite a bit with buy-in. And persuasion. People are at a liberal arts college. This is the basis of it. This is what they should be thinking about, and what they're. To me, in any event, I find it very attractive to teach other people's syllabi as well, because you learn so much in the process of talking with other faculty members and designing assignments together, talking about the discussion section that you're going to have. I think a lot of that we can do on persuasion. You may prove me completely wrong, and then there are other things that we can do. I think the other thing that's going to be really important in order to make this work is to expand the size of our faculty. Because right now there are many faculty members who cannot participate in the first-year seminar program because there simply aren't enough professors in their departments to cover the courses that they really need to cover. So particularly in order to get science professors to participate in the first-year seminar program, we will need to add faculty to each of those departments. We need to anyhow, whether or not we introduce a first-year seminar more requirements in the first-year seminar program. We do need more faculty. We have a pretty good ratio, 8 to 1, but there are schools like Pomona and Middlebury that have 7 to 1 ratios, and Williams, and we should have a 7 to 1 ratio as well. Yeah?
I don't understand that, because I think there's a common understanding that jobs are so hard to get. We have all these...
Oh, okay. So the problem is that the Board of Trustees sets a limit on how many faculty we can have, because faculty are expensive. And so that's the limit. The college budget is our limit. So we, are going to make increasingly the case that we need more faculty in order to do that. And then, yes, it's a buyer's market. So in many fields, we get our absolute first choice. Some of the quantitative fields, though, it's not so easy to hire a liberal arts college. We are having a hell of a time hiring computer scientists. And our computer scientists, when we hire them, they also often leave. So they have just many other opportunities besides teaching at Amherst College. So in some fields, very easy to hire. In other fields, harder, much harder. Yeah?
I entered in '62, and that was the new curriculum. I know that you were privy to the transition between our new curriculum and the new curriculum, but I was wondering how the people who constructed the new curriculum viewed the old, was it, and why it did occur.
So why did it occur? It occurred, the transition from the new curriculum, so that curriculum between 1947 and 1966, it hit up against the 1960s, and people felt like this is too authoritarian, there's not enough choice, it just no longer sort of matched the tenor of the times. So as a result, both faculty and students, I think, were no longer so committed to the core curriculum or to the new curriculum, and so it went away. The problem was that the faculty didn't come up with a new solution other than a little bit this problems of inquiry. And the problems of inquiry was originally, you said 3 semesters, it may well have been, It then went down to 2 semesters and then eventually down to 1 semester. And by 1971, faculty committees were writing reports saying, actually, we don't think we need to do anything. We think that the Amherst College students are getting the education they should be getting with, in this situation of there being no requirements other than the major requirements, and actually college, you know, they have to fulfill a certain number of courses. So you have to pass a certain number of courses. So it's really about changing times, and that's the argument I would make now. The reason why we will probably, hopefully, change some aspects of our curriculum is because it no longer matches necessarily what we think is best for our students in, you know, the beginning of the 21st century. So these things change over time, and it's actually very interesting. Amherst, the end of the 19th century, had more electives in its curriculum than any other school but Harvard. Okay, and then they got much stricter over time. So this has been a real pendulum that has swung back and forth over about 150 years. And what's interesting about Amherst, though, is that it's always sort of the best of the models, in my view. You know, they go pretty far out on the curricular experimentation front. And it's time to try something new here. At least maybe it won't be so bold, but something that sort of gets us a little bit out of the, you could say, free-for-all that we have right now. Yeah?
On the technology front, it's now possible to collaborate, and I'm wondering, are the faculty at all bringing in, say, professors from China, you know, into their classrooms, or having maybe collaborating with students elsewhere?
So we do have a program called the Global Classroom that does do that, where like 4 times a semester students do Skype with students in another classroom in another part of the world. I'm not wild about that model, largely because it seems very episodic, and so it doesn't feel like to me that it lends itself to sort of deep learning. Where the kinds of collaboration that you're talking about can be incredibly helpful is in language learning, and actually language learning right here in the Valley. So for example, for less commonly taught languages like Hebrew or Japanese to a certain extent, we are experimenting quite a bit with blended learning models where there's a professor on one campus teaching students who are in a classroom at another campus. In some cases, there's a teaching assistant in the room with the students on the other campus, and students have been overwhelmingly positive about these experiments. So right now, the kinds of blended learning that we're talking about is particularly happening in language learning and actually just among the 5 colleges. That's a good start. I periodically get inquiries from other institutions, would you be willing to, you know, think about this? And so far, no model has really taken off. There is a group of faculty among liberal arts colleges that are working on a blended learning approach to math. And certain calculus and stuff like that. So there's some of this going on, but right now we're most successful is in language learning. Who hasn't asked a question? I'm getting questions from people who've already asked. Anyone, hi.
Hi. I have the impression from high school students that they work very hard to get their GPA up so that they will be accepted at places like Amherst. I think that attitude has progressed to the college level, where the students in college are anxious to get their GPAs up so they get accepted to the preferred graduate school. 65 years ago, most of my class went on to graduate school. I don't know what the percentage is now, but I suspect it's pretty high.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Amherst has become a prep school for the graduate schools.
Okay. So roughly 85 to 90% of our graduates will go on to graduate school within 5 years, so even higher than at your time. There is no question that grade GPA anxiety is rampant among our students, and it's very, very hard to tamp down. Students are just very, very anxious these days, and for the reasons that you suggest. In some cases, it really matters, the medical school GPAs, I think that matters a lot. In other cases, it may be somewhat less important, but students are, because I think largely once you say your degrees from Amherst College, I think that opens a lot of doors either way, and graduate schools look at that as well. However, it's very hard to get out of. The curriculum committee is trying to think of ways that would allow students to take risks and not worry so much about their GPA. So possibly raising the number of courses you're allowed to take pass-fail. Right now, I believe you're allowed to take 2 courses pass-fail. Not a lot of students do it, but it'd be good if more students did it. Some liberal arts schools only have shadow grades during the first semester or during the first year. Shadow grades exist largely for medical school and other kinds of professional programs that you might apply to. But it would be great if it didn't factor into your overall GPA. So there are different things that we're thinking about. You've hit on a really important problem, and it's a tough one to deal with. Yeah.
So the counter to that, though,
Yep.
just thinking about how I went to law school and I was pretty grade conscious. Don't really want to admit that. So if there were pass-fail classes, I could see certain cohorts of the student body taking them and taking those off, and then focusing on the other 3 classes they have to boost their grades in those classes, and then just getting the pass in the pass-fail.
So that's part of this logic of why we might want to extend the number of pass-fail courses available to students.
Right, but so how do you get the students to engage in the pass-fail class? Some will.
Right, by making it pass-D-fail. In other words, it's too easy to pass a class at Amherst College, but it may at the D level. But it may be that if it's got to be pass D or F, then students will avoid that D, and as a result, will do a little bit, put more work into the class. That's the problem that I see with pass-fail classes, is that there's no incentive for students to engage because virtually anyone can pass a class at Amherst. Other questions, concerns? Yeah.
Surely this is not new. When we were in college, there were students who were very desperately worried about their whether they would be able to get into medical school or into law school and so forth and so on. This isn't something that happened yesterday.
It's not, but for whatever reason, students are more anxious about it today. Some of it may also be, the student body that we have. Many of them are first-generation students. They don't have a net to fall upon if, they don't go to graduate school for a year or something like that. Upper middle-class kids, their parents will support them at some level. But for other, for many kids, it's really, this is their only shot. So it may be a little bit more difficult than it was in the past.
Adding to what Bob just said, when we grew up here, the standard course was 4 credit hours, and it made an awful lot of difference. Occasionally, a teacher such as Professor Kennedy would take a crackerjack, murderous philosopher to make it a 1 credit hour course, so that if you didn't do well on it, it's not going to hurt you.
So we have a little bit of a conversation going on around variable credits and giving, but not a lot. So that's not something that we've explored in great detail. More the idea of partial credits or differential credits would be around skills-based courses, like maybe you take a class in public speaking or something like that. And you can imagine that being perhaps a partial credit class. Yeah?
I've known some teachers that were not very good researchers, but were just amazing with students.
Yep.
And the students loved them and they
Yep.
loved them back. When you look at potential faculty, how do you assess some of those intangibles?
We need both. So a fabulous teacher who does not have a research agenda, probably wouldn't get tenure here. So for all that they are terrific and amazing, we really believe that the research is part of what you do at Amherst College. Creating knowledge we view as important, and we view that's important also for that student's interactions with faculty members. So what we're really looking for is for faculty members who do it all. Right? It's hard, but that's what we're looking for, and we do, we have we have many who are terrific across the board, and some who are just, over the top in terms of being able both to teach and to research. Yeah?
I was wondering if you would comment on the acceptance of people who are in community colleges.
Yes.
For the 2 years. This is a kind of new innovation.
So we have a transfer program, and we do focus heavily on students from community colleges. It's a relatively small number overall, and I don't know the exact numbers, but there are never more than 20 students across across all 4 years who have transferred in from community colleges. So relatively small, but we think they're important. They offer a very different perspective on many things than our more traditional student body.
Well, are they admitted to the first year?
They are usually, no, they are not admitted as first years. They're usually admitted with the understanding that they will do 2 years at Amherst. They frequently ask to do an additional semester, so 2.5 years. And we have newly instituted a a transfer first year seminar. So you will transfer and then you'll be in a first year seminar, so to say, your first year seminar at Amherst with other transfer students. And part of the logic of that is also to sort of build community among transfer students.
How successful has it been?
It's very new, and so I think our graduation rates are just slightly lower among the transfer students, but not significantly so. They ask to have some kind of a first year, or some sort of seminar where they're all together, and so Jill Gensler, the head of the Teaching and Learning Collaborative, took that on last year. She says it was very successful, but we won't know, until we see how those students do as they progress through the Amherst curriculum. Another couple years. Yeah, sorry, you have
Doesn't the first year seminar for transfer students run counter to the notion of getting students from different backgrounds and whatnot integrated the way that you're trying to move the first year?
It does. In some ways it does, but we think it's more valuable to have them together as a group and community building among them. And it's also optional, so they have the choice. They don't have to do it. We think that's more valuable, and because they only have, at most 4 or 5 semesters at Amherst, we feel like, they should be able to spread themselves across the curriculum how they want to. Now, it will be interesting if we make the changes we're talking about through the curriculum committee. It will be interesting to see how that would impact transfer students. Yeah?
On the same topic, in 1952, the year I came over, Dean Jean came around and selected a very rich assortment of students, some right brain, some left brain, some, just a rich assortment of student body. Is that still the sort of thing you do?
Well, we have a very rich assortment of students in every possible way, so diverse in every conceivable way. So yes, there's a lot of picking and choosing, and we have a very small admittance rate, so the admission staff is very concerned with building a student body that represents all sorts of perspectives. Yep.
I remember, so I'm here for my 5th reunion, and as of 5 years ago, a big challenge coming up was that a very high percentage of the faculty were going to be retiring over the next 5 years.
Yes.
So now that it's 5 years later, I'm wondering, where are we in that process?
We're still in that process. I mean, we're deeply in that process. We're anticipating hiring 10 new faculty members over the next 5 years at least. But if you were here at the beginning, I said, we're hiring 15 people next year. So we're right in the middle of that wave. And we're also finding, we hire people, but for spousal and other reasons, they leave too. So this hiring pattern will probably be going on for a while, and it's great because it just gives us the opportunity to renew the faculty, to keep searching over a long period of time. So, it's best not to have a static faculty. We want to have a faculty that's being constantly replenished and renewed. So it's going on for quite a while, and then if we expand the faculty a little bit, there'll be more searches, so that's all good. I mean, I'm not seeing any kind of roadblock in terms of hiring new faculty. We're in a very good place for that. Yeah.
So one of my best experiences for learning how to learn and just really going deep into the subject was when I wrote my thesis. So I was wondering if there was ever any consideration of requiring a capstone project or a sort of a thesis light.
Yeah. So I'm glad you wrote a senior thesis. It used to be a few years ago, our senior thesis rates were 50% of students. And for reasons that we don't quite understand, this year 38% of the senior class wrote theses. I think that's low. I would like to see that number rise because I think that doing a senior thesis is perhaps the single richest sort of intellectual experience that students have at the college. That having been said, there are reasons why students don't want to write senior theses. We would like, the curriculum committee is thinking about ways to make sure that students have more intense capstone experiences if they choose not to write a senior thesis. So that is something that we're looking at, and I think it's really important. I mean, even short of a senior thesis, there's lots of research and deep learning that students can do in a capstone experience, and we'd like to explore that more, and we know that it's important. Last question.
Were the Latin honors not tied to the thesis? this year?
No, they are still tied to writing a thesis. And the question is, would we continue that and add distribution, or would we no longer link senior theses to Latin honors?
Are people that think that they're competitive, are those the only people doing theses? Because to have only 38% when that's, it seems as though, I know when they were in attendance, that was part of the main reason why people did their thesis.
You mean Latin honors?
To be competitive.
Yes.
So it seems that by electing not to do one, you're automatically taking yourself out of the running for having that on
For Latin honors.
Yeah.
Yes, and so what's frustrating is it seems like that's insufficient incentive for whatever reason. 62% of students, if I've got my math right, are not thinking Latin honors is absolutely crucial for me to graduate with. It would be good if more students felt like it was.
Is it the people that are already in the top of the class that are looking to do it, or are you finding that some of your top students are?
Some of our top students are not doing it, but that's long been the case. And sometimes they say, well, it's because I'm double majoring, or I'm doing other things, or I don't want to spend 3 courses at Amherst writing my thesis. I'd rather take 3 courses with 3 other professors at Amherst. So there are a variety of reasons for why students don't do it. We should probably dig deeper into why they're not doing it, because again, I would like to see that number rise, more. I already said the last question. All right.
Sure. Is there any limit on tenure by age?
No. So we have faculty members who are in their late 70s. No one, as far as
That's young.
That's young, right? I don't think anyone in their 80s is still on the faculty, but I'm not sure. But basically, no. There is no limit by federal law. We're not allowed to say it's time to retire.
But you know about retirements.
We know about retirements, and we know about ways to incentivize retirements, and we do that. So yes, but I'm not allowed to initiate a conversation with a faculty member about, isn't it time to retire? That's not allowed.
I understand there is a legal reason.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for coming today.